So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this second instalment of going over some common algebra questions taken from some higher GCSE Maths papers. Now if you haven't already downloaded a copy of the questions and had an attempt of answering the questions, you can access the question paper by clicking on the link in description, where you'll also find a question breakdown of the questions we go through in this video. So let's get started on question 1. So question 21 says Leo runs for 12 seconds. The graph shows his speed. For 21.8 says show that the distance he runs is less than 67.5 meters. So the first thing we need to establish is that the distance is equal to time multiplied by speed. Now when you are multiplying, then that's therefore going to be the area under the curve. So looking at this particular shape, I can see that I've got three main shapes. So the first one, which I'm just going to label A, is a triangle. The second stage is a trapezium, which I'm going to label B. And then for C, I've got this curve, but it's probably the closest shape to that is going to be a triangle. So if I just draw a straight line from 9 seconds all the way up to 12, I can then have a decent attempt at estimating what the area is going to be, or the distance between 9 and 12 seconds. So if I start by first of all working out the area of A. Now area of A is a triangle, so it's going to be base times height divided by 2. So I'll just write a triangle, and it's going to be B times H divided by 2. So that's going to be the base of that triangle, which is 5, multiplied by the height, which is 8, divided by 2. 5 times 8 is 40, divided by 2 is 20 meters. Then if I work out area B, and area B is a trapezium, so if this is A, this is going to be B, and this is going to be my height. So that's a trapezium, and the formula for the area of a trapezium is A plus B times H divided by 2. So that's going to be 8 plus 9 multiplied by the height, which is 4, divided by 2. And if I work all of that out, I get an answer of 34 meters. Oh, don't know what letter that is. So let me just correct that. Then for area C, it's a triangle. So here I've got my base, which is 3. So it's 3 times 9, which is the height, divided by 2. Let me just write triangle there. And that gives me an answer of 13.5 meters. Now the total distance is going to be 20 plus 34 plus 13.5, which is 67.5, which is what they wanted me to show. But as C is an overestimate, as the curve is below the line, the actual distance Leo travels is less than 67.5 meters. So if you write something along those lines just to tie up the answer to this question, then that should be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 21b, it says work out the average acceleration for the first 9 seconds, state the units of your answer. Now the acceleration is basically, it's going to be speed divided by time, which in this case is going to equal the gradient. So what the question is asking me is to work out the gradient of the first 9 seconds. So if I go back to my graph, that 0 and 9 is here. So then if I draw a line from 0 to 9, and let me just do just that, I want to work out the gradient of that green line. So you can see that it's already a right angle triangle, and so I want the time travelled, which is 9 seconds, over the speed travel, which is 9. So then it's going to be 9 divided by 9 which equals 1. Now for the units, the speed is measured in meters per second and the time is measured in seconds. So then the units are going to be, well, it's meters per second divided by speed, which if I flip the fraction then becomes meters per second squared. So the answer will be, you can either write it as meters per second squared, or you can write 1 meter per second, but I would say that one definitely looks a lot neater. Then moving on to question 22, it says the equation of a circle is x squared plus y squared equals 9. Work out the diameter. Well, the equation of a circle is this. So that means that r squared equals 9, which therefore means that r equals 3. Now it's not going to be minus 3 because radius is a length and you can't have negative length. So if the radius is 3, then that means the diameter is going to be 2 lots of the radius, which is 6. So the answer I need to circle is the second option. Then moving on to question 23, it says point P is on the circle with the equation of x squared plus y squared equals 80. P has a x coordinate of 4 and is below the x-axis. Work out the equation of the tangent to the circle at P. So let's have a look at what we know so far. So we know that this point here is going to be 4 because it tells us that the x coordinate of P is 4. So we just don't know what the y on it, so let's just call that y. Now, what I need to do is I first of all need to work out what the gradient of OP is going to be. Now, we know that the base of that triangle is 4. So to work out the y-ordinate of P, to find the y-ord of P, what we need to do is sub x equals 4 into the equation of the circle, which is x squared plus y squared equals 80. So if I substitute 4 into that, I get 16 plus y squared equals 80. So then y squared equals 64. So y is going to equal plus or minus 8. Now, because we know it's below the x-axis, that y is going to equal minus 8. So the coordinate for P is going to be minus 8. Now from this I can then work out what the gradient of OP is going to be, because if this point here is minus 8, this point here is 4, then what that does, it gives me the dimensions of the triangle for me to work out what the gradient is going to be. So the gradient of OP is going to be the height, which is 8, divided by 4, which gives me 2. Now because it's going down, it's actually going to be minus 2. So therefore the gradient of the tangent, which is going to be the reciprocal of OP, or the negative reciprocal, is going to be minus 1 over minus 2, which gives me an answer of a half. So m equals a half. Then using the coordinates of P, which is 4 minus 8, and m equals 0.5 or a half, whichever floats your boat, I can then use y minus y1 equals mx minus x1 to work out the equation of the tangent. So it's going to be y plus 8, because minus minus 8 is plus 8, equals a half x minus 4. Then if I expand it out, I get x plus 8 equals a half x minus 2, because a half times 4 is minus 2. Then take the 8 over, so you get y equals a half x minus 10, and there is my answer for that one. Then if I simplify the right hand side, I get 24 minus 2x equals 12x divided by 4 is 3x, 24 divided by 4 is 6. So then taking the 2x over to the other side, I get 24 equals 5x plus 6. Take away the 6 and I get 18 equals 5x, and then I can then work out what x is. So x equals 18 divided by 5, or I could write that as a decimal, which gives me an answer of 3.6. I'd probably leave your answer as 18 over 5. Then moving on to question 25, it says the area of a rectangle is 28 square centimeters. Work out the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, in order to work out the perimeter, we need to work out what x is. So here the area is equal to 6x minus 1 multiplied by x plus 2, and we know that that is equal to 28. So if I expand the brackets out, I get 6x squared, and it's going to be plus 12x minus x minus 2 equals 28. So that's 6x plus 11x minus 2 equals 28. Take the 28 because it looks like a quadratic, and I get this. Now at this stage I then need to factorize or use the quadratic formula to solve. It does actually factorize, so it's going to be 2x minus 3, 3x plus 10. If you didn't want to factorize, I would probably go for the quadratic formula, which a equals 6, b equals 11, and c equals minus 30. But solving the factorization, we get x equals 3 over 2 or minus 10 over 3. Now x can't equal this, as we would end up with a negative length. So x equals 1.5. So if x equals 1.5, then the perimeter is, going back to this, is going to be 2 lots of 6x plus 1, or 6x minus 1 plus 2 lots of x plus 2. So then substituting x equals 1.5, I get 6 times 1.5, which is going to give me 9. So it's 9 minus 1 times 2 plus 2 lots of 3.5. Now 9 take away 1 is 8, times 2 is 16. 2 times 3.5 is 7. So it's 16 plus 7, which is 23. Then moving on to question 26, it says complete the table of values, and we've got the formula of y, or the equation of y equals x cubed plus 4. So then to work out this number here, all I've got to do is substitute x equals minus 2 in there. So it'll be minus 2, and I put it in brackets, cubed plus 4. Now minus 2 times minus 2 is minus 4, times minus 2 is minus 8. So it's minus 8 plus 4, which is minus 4. Then for the next one, we're going to substitute 1, x equals 1, so it's going to be 1 cubed plus 4, which is 5. So all that's left for me to do is then plot those coordinates. So if I just zoom out a little bit, I can see all of that. Now I'll just do a little table of values on the side. So we've got minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, and we had y equals minus 4, 3, 4, 5, and 12. So then plotting these points, I've got minus 2, minus 4, which is here. Then I've got minus 1, 3, which is there. 0, it's 4. At 1, it's at 5. And at 2, it's 12. So it's going to produce like an S-shaped curve. So all that's left for me to do is, to the best of my ability, and again, this is really difficult doing this on the computer, you then want to just join those points up with a smooth curve so it looks something like that. Then moving on to question 22c, it says the graph of y equals 5 plus 3x minus 2x squared is shown for the values of x is between minus 2 and 3. And the question is asking us to write down the solution of when it equals 0. Now when it equals 0, basically we're looking for the roots. So we're looking for this value here and this value here. That's at minus 1, and this point here is at 2.5, or 5 over 2. So the two answers you then want to write are going to be minus 1 and 2.5. Then moving on to question 27, so let me just zoom in. So here we've got a quadratic, and it's asked us to give our answers to 2 decimal places. So first things first, when solving a quadratic, you always need to make sure it's equal to 0. So let's do a bit of rearranging, in which we want to try and also keep the x squared positive, just to make your life a little bit easier. Now once you made it equal to 0, the fact that it says give your answer 2 decimal places basically means use the formula. So here a equals 5, b equals minus 10, and c equals 4. Now in any of you working out, whenever you use the quadratic formula, although it's going to be probably using this on a calculator, always make sure that you are writing the substitution as you're working out. So here I've got x equals, and it's going to be, now the formula is minus b plus minus b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Try and also write x equals because it does help. So then from this, if I substitute this in, we'll end up with minus, well, I'm just going to write it as exactly as it is. And so I get, and just try and put the minus 10 in brackets, minus, and I always like to put the 4ac in brackets as well. And that's all divided by 2 times 5. Now, if you want to, you can substitute this in, but I would just be mindful of the negatives. So these two minuses become a plus, and because you're squaring a negative number, that's always going to be a positive anyway. So you don't need to include that negative. So there you go. But definitely put that negative 10 in brackets rather than just writing minus 10, because your calculator will give you the incorrect answer. Now, if I type that all in, I should get an x value of, to do decimal places, of x equals 2.34 or x equals minus 0.34. And there you go. Then moving on to question 28, it says solve x squared plus 6x plus 2 equals 0. Give your answer in the form and in surd form. Now, when you're writing things in surd form, you can either use the quadratic formula. This will probably appear on a non-calculator paper. So you can either use the quadratic formula or use completing the square. Now I'm going to use completing the square. So here I've got x plus 3 squared plus 2 minus 9 equals 0. So then x plus 3 squared minus 7 equals 0. Now once I've got it to this form, I then start making x the subject. So I end up with x plus 3 squared equals 7. X plus 3 equals plus or minus root 7. And then x equals minus 3 plus minus root 7. And there is my final answer. Now if I did use the quadratic formula, basically a equals 1, b equals 6, and c equals 2. So if I substitute those numbers in, I get minus 6 plus minus 36 minus 4 times 1 times 2, all divided by 2. And 2 times 1, that is. So then working this out, I get plus or minus 6 plus or minus, and then it's going to be square root of 36. 4 times 1 times 2 is 8, so it's minus 8, and that's all divided by 2. Then simplifying that further, get minus 6 plus minus, and 36 take away 8 is 28, and that's divided by 2. And then from this, what I can then do is, using surds, 28 is root 4 times root 7, which is 2 root 7. So this then becomes minus 6 plus minus 2 root 7 over 2. I can then cancel 2's out, and that becomes a 3. So my answer then becomes minus 3 plus minus root 7. Now you can see, without any question, the easiest method is going to be completing the square. Then moving on to question 29, it says for us to solve the simultaneous equations of 2x plus 4y equals minus 9 and 2y equals 4x minus 7. Now the key thing to spot in this, if I just zoom in a little bit, is the fact that this second equation is not written in the same format as the first one. So let's start by rewriting this, so we can write it as 4x minus 4x plus 2y equals minus 7. Then if I write the first equation, that's 2x plus 4y equals minus 9. You can see there that haven't got the same number of x's and I haven't got the same number of y's. So then it's just a case of making a decision which letter you want to make the same. Now I'm personally going to go for making y's the same, so let's start by multiplying the second equation by 2. So if I do that, I end up with 2x plus 4y equals minus 9. And if I multiply this second equation by 2, I end up with minus 8x plus 4y equals minus 14. Now with this, because my y's are the same quantity and they're both positive and the same sign, I take away the two equations. So 2x minus minus 8x is 10x. The y's disappear, and minus 9 minus minus 14 becomes minus 9 plus 14, which is 5. So then x equals 0.5. So then if x equals 0.5, then using 2x plus 4y equals minus 9, I then get 2 times a half is 1, plus 4y equals minus 9. So 4y is going to equal minus 10. So y equals minus 2.5. And there are my two values, which if you wanted to, you could give as a fraction. So it'll be a half, and that will be minus 5 over 2, or minus 2 and a half. So any of those would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 30, it says here is a graph. So let's just zoom out so we can actually see the question. I'm zooming out quite a lot. And it says, by drawing a second graph on the grid, work out the approximate solution to the simultaneous equation. So the equation has already been drawn of 4x minus 3x. So that one's done. So what I need to do is I need to plot 3x plus 2y equals 6. Now to do this, all we need is 2 points. So just guess two nice small values of y. So when x equals 0, then this equation is going to be 0 plus 2y equals 6. So that means y must equal 3. So one coordinate is 0, 3. Then when y equals 0, we get 3x plus 0 equals 6. So x equals 2. So another coordinate is 2, 0. So on the set of axes, if I then zoom in, I'm plotting those coordinates of 0, 3. So 0, 3 is there. And 2, 0 is here. So all I need to then do is draw a straight line connecting those points. And let me just do that so it's going to be as accurate as I can. Now when you are drawing or plotting a line, just make sure it goes right to the edge of the grid of the squared paper that they give you. And you definitely want to show that the lines are intersecting. So at this particular point, it's intersecting at this point here. So I then just need to write down the coordinate of the approximate solution to this. So it's going to be the coordinate of that, which is 0.5. So x equals 0.5 and, or 2.5, I should say. 2.5 and y equals 0.5. And just ignore the big blob that I've put there. And the fact that this line should be drawn a little bit more accurately. Well, it's actually round about 0.6, I should say. Let's just change that to a 6. Then moving on to the next question. So here we've got another simultaneous equation, but this time we've got one linear, one quadratic, and I knew that was going to happen. So let's just go back to that question. And here we go. So it says solve the simultaneous equation. Now what you want to do with this is, with the linear equation, which is here, you want to rearrange this to make one letter the subject. Now it makes it more appealing to make y the subject. So here we end up with y equals, now if I take the 4x over to the side, I end up with minus 3 minus 3x. Now from this, as I've made y the same and y both equal to each other, then that means that the equations, therefore, because they both equal y, can now equal each other. So what I end up with is x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals minus 3 minus 4x. Now if I take all of this over to this side, I end up with x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Now you can see it's quadratic, it's equal to 0. So let's now go on and solve this. Now this does factorize, and my two numbers are 4 and 2 plus equals 0. So x equals minus 4 or minus 2. Now when x equals minus 2, or when x equals minus 4, let's say, y equals, and the formula was minus 3x minus 3 minus 4x So then y equals minus 3, and it's going to be positive 16. So y equals 13. So one set of values is going to be minus 4 and 13. Then when x is minus 2, then y equals minus 3 minus 4x. So y equals minus 3 minus 4 times minus 2 is positive 8. So then that becomes 5. So my second coordinate is minus 2 and 5. Then moving on to question 32, it says an approximate solution to the equation of using the iterative process, and we've got our formula here. So using the calculator, let's work this out. So first of all, we want to work out the values of x2 and x1. Now for this, what I'll do is I'll start by substituting it in. So we've got minus 1 cubed minus 3 divided by 8. And if I type that all into my calculator, so let's just load the calculator up. So my first value is minus 1, so let's start by entering that. Press equals to keep that stored. Then pressing the fraction one, now enter the formula for xn1. So this then becomes bracket and close bracket to the power of 3 minus 3 all over 8. Then if I press equals, my first answer for x2 is minus a half, or minus 0.5. Then if I bring the calculator along, the next time I press equals, it gives me 25 over 64, which as a decimal is that long number there. So we can start by writing minus 0.390625. So then my x2 value is 0.5 and my x3 value is minus 0.390625. Now if you wanted to round those numbers up, that's fine, but just make sure that you are stating what you've rounded it up to, as that is the actual answer, or to play it safe, leave it as a fraction. Then to work out the solution to 6 decimal places, what you then want to do is keep pressing equals until the number stops changing. So here the actual answer, or the solution, so the solution is equal to minus 0.3819660113. We then want to round this number up to 6 decimal places. So the answer is 0.381966. Then moving on to question 23, it says the square and the rectangle have the same area. All lengths are in centimetres. Show that 36x squared minus 65x plus 25 equals 0. So first of all, let's work out the area of A. So that's going to be 6x minus 5 multiplied by 6x minus 5. Now that's going to be equal to the area of the rectangle, which is 5 times x. So then all that's left for us to do is expand the brackets and make it equal to 0. So here I end up with 36x squared minus 30x minus 30x plus 25 equals 5x. So that becomes 36x squared minus 60x plus 25 equals 5x. Take the 5x over, so it becomes 36x squared minus 65x plus 25 equals 0, which is exactly what they wanted us to show. Then for 33b, it says we need to then go on and solve this. Now for this, I personally would go straight into the quadratic formula, because again, we can't simplify this line any further because there is no numbers that go into 36, 65 or 25. So it's going to be a equals 36, b equals minus 65 and c equals 25. So then substitute the numbers into the formula. I get minus 65, which is positive 65, plus minus, and it's going to be minus 65 squared minus 4 times a times c, all square rooted and all divided by 2 times 36. Now typing that into your calculator, you'll end up with an answer of 5 over 4 or 5 over 9, which now by having answers of x equals 5 over 4 and 5 over 9 gives me the impression that this will actually, it does actually factorize. So if you are brave enough to attempt to factorize this, then it's going to be answers of, and I would say it would be 4x minus 5 and 9x minus 5 equals 0. So we'll factorize, or you can use the quadratic formula. Now, looking at the values of x, it can't equal this, as this would give negative length on the shapes. So therefore the correct answer must be 5/4 or 1.25. So any of those answers in fraction form or as a decimal will be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 34, it says ABCD is a quadrilateral. Prove that ABCD is not a cyclic quadrilateral. So with this, you always want to state what fact you're going to be using. So if ABCD is a cyclic quadrilateral, then opposite angles are add together to make 180 degrees. Now, one fact we know that because it's a quadrilateral, we know that all the angles add up to 360. So as ABCD is a quadrilateral, sum of angles equals 360. So if I add up all those angles, I get 4x plus x plus 36 plus 5x plus 30 plus 92 must add up to 360. Now, going on from this, we can then go on to solve this. So here I end up with 10x plus 158 equals 360. So then doing a bit of rearranging, 10x equals 202, so x equals 20.2. Now if x equals 20.2, we can then work out what this angle here is going to be. So that's going to be 4 times 20.2, which is 80.8. And as you can see, as 80.8 plus 92 does not equal 180, ABCD is not a cyclic quadrilateral. And then moving on to question 35, it says solve, and here we've got our inequality. Now with this inequality, there are so many different ways in which you can go on and solve this, but as long as you get the correct answer and you're showing some work as the question's worth 2 marks, you should be all fine. Now your way might be different to the way I'm going to be doing it, but again, like I said, if you get the same answer, it's all good. So from this, I don't like the fractions, so I'm going to multiply everything by the fraction. So here I end up with 12 equals 33 minus x. Now from this, I'm going to take the x over to the side, so I end up with x plus 12 is less than 33. I can then take the 12 over to the other side, so x is greater than 21 or 21 is less than x. So any of those two answers would be fine to get the full marks for that particular question. Then for question 36, it says here is a sketch of the curve of y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12. Work out the value of x for which x squared plus 4x minus 12 is less than 0. So first things first, what I need to do is I need to work out what these 2 points here are, which are the solutions. So I do that by factorising. So here I end up with, so if I solve x squared plus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0, I can solve that by factorising. So I've got x minus plus 6 and x minus 2 equals 0. So the two solutions are minus 6 and 2. So if I just label that on my diagram, so this is going to be minus 6, that's going to be 2. The reason why it's that way around is because the smaller number comes more to the left and the bigger number is more to the right. Now with this inequality, I want the values of where the curve is less than 0. So I'm wanting this region here. Now the region of that is where x, don't know why I'm trying to write with a highlighter. So this is where x is between minus 6 and 2. And it's not going to be equal to because there's no equal to on this inequality. So that there is going to be my final answer for that one. Moving on to question 34. So here we look at plotting inequalities. So what we need to do for this particular question, if we go back to it, and there we go, is we then need to plot x equals 3, and I want below the line or to the left. I then need to plot y equals x, and I want above the line. And I then need to plot y equals 2x minus 1, and I want below the line for that one. So plotting x equals 3, well, that is going to be they're all going to be solid lines because it can equal that. So that's going to be a vertical line through x equals 3. And so let me just plot that accurately. And let me just extend that line like so. Now, whenever you are drawing lines, you do want to make sure you're going right to the limits of the graph paper. So that's x equals 3, and I want that side of that line. Then plotting y equals x, well, that's going to be a straight diagonal line through 1, 1, 2, 2 through the origin. So make out that if I use 2, 2 as a marker, as long as my eyes don't go a bit doolally, I think that's the point there. And that's the line of y equals x. And let me just make sure that does look a y rather than x equals x. And I want above that line. And then the last line for me to then draw is 2x minus 1. Now, if I quickly do a table of values, use 3 small numbers, and then substitute x into this formula. So 2 times 0 is 0, take away 1 is minus 1. 2 times 1 is 2, take away 1 is 1. And 2 times 2 is 4, take away 1 is 3. So plotting those points, let's use blue. We've got 0 minus 1, which is here, 1, 1, which is there, and then we've got 2, 3, which is there. So then if I then get the ruler or straight edge to plot those points, and which it doesn't do, so let me just neaten this one up. And I then want to just extend that line like so. And this is a line of y equals 2x minus 1. And I want below that line, so I want this region here. So that basically means that the region R, which is what they wanted me to show, is this region here. And I just need to label that as R. So let me just get a different color and label that R. Then moving on to question 38, so let me just zoom in, and it says the term-to-term rule for a sequence is multiply by 2. It says the sequence starts with A, then 2A, and then we've got 2 blanks. It says the total value of the first 3 terms is 63. Work out the total value of the first 4 terms. So here, to get from A to the next term, I multiply by 2. So the next term is also going to be multiplied by 2. So 2A times 2 is 4A. And multiply that by 2, and I get 8a. Now, it says that the sum of the first 3 terms, which I've just highlighted in yellow, is equal to 63. So a plus 2a plus 4a equals 63. So that means that 7a equals 63. So a equals, and it's going to be 63 divided by 7, which is 9. So then substituting 9 in, that's going to equal 9. That's going to equal 18, that's going to equal 36, and this is going to equal 72. So the question is then asking, work out the total value of the first 4 terms. So the total of first 4 terms is going to be 9 plus 18 plus 36 plus 72, which gives me a total of 135. Then moving on to question 39, it says the nth term of a sequence is n and n minus 4 all over the square root of n plus 3. Work out the sum of the first term and the sixth term. So the first term is when n equals 1. So if I substitute 1 into this formula, I get 1 minus 4 over the square root of 1 plus 3. Now if I simplify the top, I get 1 minus 4, which is minus 3, times minus 1, sorry, times 1 is minus 3. and 1 plus 3 is 4, so it then becomes minus 3 over 2, or minus 1.5. Then the sixth term is when n equals 6, so I've got 6 minus 4 all over square root of 6 plus 3. 6 take away 4 is 2, times 6 is 12, root 9, which is 3, so that's 12 over 3, which is 4. So then the total sum is going to be minus 1.5 plus 4, which is an answer of 2.5. Then finally, moving on to our last question, it says here is the first 4 terms of a quadratic sequence. So we've got 11, 26, 30, 45 and 68. Work out the expression for the nth term. So here what I need to do is first of all work out the first difference. So the first difference between 11 and 26 is 15 plus 15. Difference between 26 and 45 is 19. Difference between 45 and 68 is 23. I then need to work out the double difference. So that's going to be plus 4 plus 4. So that means what's going to be in the formula is the double difference divided by 2, which is 2n squared. So then if I then work out my table, so I've got n, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've then got the numbers in the sequence, which is 11, 26, 45 and 68. I then want to work out what 2n squared is. So remember to do the n squared first. So 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8. 3 squared is 9 times 2 is 18. And 4 squared is 16 times 2 is 32. Now the next thing I then need to do from this is to work out what the difference is going to be. So here if I work out the difference, it's going to be, so the nth term is going to be 2n squared plus whatever the difference is going to equal. So here the difference to get from 2n squared to 11 is plus 9, then it's plus 18, then it's plus 27, and then it's plus 36. Now from this I then need to work out an nth term for these numbers here of 9, 18, 27, 36. So I notice that the difference is 9. So that means that 9n is in the formula. 9 times, what's the difference between 9 to 9 is 0. So then the difference is equal to 9n. So then going back to the formula for the nth term, we've got 2n squared plus whatever the difference was. Well, we now know that the difference is 9n. So that means that the nth term is going to be 2n squared plus 9n, and there is my final answer.